Bali is an island and province of Indonesia. The province includes the island of Bali and a few smaller neighboring islands, notably Nusa Penida, Nusa Lembongan, and Nusa Senengan. It is located at the westernmost end of the Lesser Sunda Islands, between Java to the west and Lombok to the east. Its capital of Denpasar is located at the southern part of the island, with a population of 3,890,757 in the 2010 census, and 4,225,000 as of January 2014. The island is home to most of Indonesia's Hindu minority. According to the 2010 census, 83.5% of Bali's population adhered to Balinese Hinduism, followed by 13.4% Muslim, Christianity at 2.5%, and Buddhism 0.5%. Bali is a popular tourist destination and is renowned for its highly developed arts, including traditional and modern dance, sculpture, painting, leather, metalworking, and music. The Indonesian International Film Festival is held every year in Bali. Since the late 20th century, the province has had a rise in tourism. Bali is part of the Coral Triangle, the area with the highest biodiversity of marine species. In this area alone, over 500 reef-building coral species can be found. For comparison, this is about 7 times as many as in the entire Caribbean. There is a wide range of dive sites with high-quality reefs, all with their own specific attractions. Many sites can have strong currents and swell, so diving without a knowledgeable guide is inadvisable. Most recently, Bali was the host of the 2011 ASEAN Summit, 2013 APEC and Miss World 2013. History. Ancient Bali was inhabited around 2000 BC by Austronesian people who migrated originally from Southeast Asia and Oceania through maritime Southeast Asia. Culturally and linguistically, the Balinese are closely related to the people of the Indonesian archipelago, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Oceania. Stone tools dating from this time have been found near the village of Sekak in the island's west. In ancient Bali, 9 Hindu sects existed, namely Pasupata, Bhairawa, Siwa, Shadanta, Vaisnava, Bodha, Brahma, Resi, Sora and Ganapatya. Each sect revered a specific deity as its personal godhead. Inscriptions from 896 and 911 don't mention a king, until 914, when Sri Kesari Valma is mentioned. They also reveal an independent Bali, with a distinct dialect, where Buddhism and Saivism were practiced simultaneously. Mpu Sindok's great-granddaughter, Mahendradatta, married the Bali king Udayana Warmadewar around 989, giving birth to Erlangga around 1001. This marriage also brought more Hinduism and Javanese culture to Bali. Princess Sakalandukarana appeared in 1098. Suradapa reigned from 1115 to 1119, and Jayasakti from 1146 until 1150. Jayapangas appears on inscriptions between 1178 and 1181, while Adakunta Ketana and his son Paramasvara in 1204. Balinese culture was strongly influenced by Indian, Chinese, and particularly Hindu culture, beginning around the 1st century AD. The name Bali Dwipar has been discovered from various inscriptions, including the Blanjong pillar inscription written by Sri Kesari Warmadewar in 914 AD and mentioning Walidwipar. It was during this time that the people developed their complex irrigation system subject to grow rice in wet field cultivation. Some religious and cultural traditions still practiced today can be traced to this period. The Hindu Majapahit Empire on eastern Java founded a Balinese colony in 1343. The uncle of Hayam Wuruk is mentioned in the charters of 1384–86. A mass Javanese emigration occurred in the next century. Portuguese contacts. The first known European contact with Bali is thought to have been made in 1512, when a Portuguese expedition led by Antonio Abreu and Francisco Serrao sighted its northern shores. It was the first expedition of a series of biannual fleets to the Moluccas that throughout the 16th century usually traveled along the coasts of the Sunda Islands. Bali was also mapped in 1512, in the chart of Francisco Rodriguez, aboard the expedition. In 1585, a ship foundered off the Bukit Peninsula and left a few Portuguese in the service of de Leeuwenhoek, Dutch East India. In 1597 the Dutch explorer Cornelis de Houtman arrived at Bali, and the Dutch East India Company was established in 1602. The Dutch government expanded its control across the Indonesian archipelago during the second half of the 19th century. Dutch political and economic control over Bali began in the 1840s on the island's north coast, when the Dutch pitted various competing Balinese realms against each other. In the late 1890s, struggles between Balinese kingdoms in the island's south were exploited by the Dutch to increase their control. In June 1860, the famous Welsh naturalist, Alfred Russel Wallace, travelled to Bali from Singapore, landing at Buleleng on the north coast of the island. Wallace's trip to Bali was instrumental in helping him devise his Wallace Line theory. The Wallace Line is a faunal boundary that runs through the strait between Bali and Lombok. It has been found to be a boundary between species of Asiatic origin in the east and a mixture of Australian and Asian species to the west. In his travel memoir The Malay Archipelago, Wallace wrote of his experience in Bali. I was both astonished and delighted, for as my visit to Java was some years later, I had never beheld so beautiful and well-cultivated a district out of Europe. A slightly undulating plain extends from the seacoast about 10 or 12 miles inland, where it is bounded by a fine range of wooded and cultivated hills. Houses and villages, marked out by dense clumps of coconut palms, tamarind and other fruit trees, are dotted about in every direction, while between them extend luxurious rice grounds, watered by an elaborate system of irrigation that would be the pride of the best cultivated parts of Europe. The Dutch mounted large naval and ground assaults at the Sanur region in 1906 and were met by the thousands of members of the royal family and their followers who fought against the superior Dutch force in a suicidal Puputan defensive assault rather than face the humiliation of surrender. Despite Dutch demands for surrender, an estimated 200 Balinese marched to their death against the invaders. In the Dutch intervention in Bali, a similar massacre occurred in the face of a Dutch assault in Klungkung. Afterward, the Dutch governors exercised administrative control over the island, but local control over religion and culture generally remained intact. Dutch rule over Bali came later and was never as well established as in other parts of Indonesia such as Java and Maluku. In the 1930s, anthropologists Margaret Mead and Gregory Bateson, artists Miguel Covarrubias and Walter Spies, and musicologist Colin McPhail spent time here. Their accounts of the island and its peoples created a Western image of Bali as an enchanted land of aesthetes at peace with themselves and nature. Western tourists began to visit the island. Imperial Japan occupied Bali during World War II. It was not originally a target in their Netherlands East Indies campaign, but as the airfields on Borneo were inoperative due to heavy rains, the Imperial Japanese Army decided to occupy Bali, which did not suffer from comparable weather. The island had no regular Royal Netherlands East Indies Army troops. There was only a native auxiliary corps Prajoda consisting of about 600 native soldiers and several Dutch KNIL officers under command of KNIL Lieutenant Colonel W.P. Rudenberg. On 19 February 1942 the Japanese forces landed near the town of Sanur. The island was quickly captured. During the Japanese occupation, a Balinese military officer, Gustin Nurare, formed a Balinese Freedom Army. The harshness of war requisitions made Japanese rule more resented than Dutch rule. Following Japan's Pacific surrender in August 1945, the Dutch returned to Indonesia, including Bali. to reinstate their pre-war colonial administration. This was resisted by the Balinese rebels, who now used recovered Japanese weapons. On 20 November 1946, the Battle of Marga was fought in Tabanan in central Bali. Colonel Igustinuro Ray, by then 29 years old, finally rallied his forces in East Bali at Margarana, where they made a suicide attack on the heavily armed Dutch. The Balinese battalion was entirely wiped out, breaking the last thread of Balinese military resistance. Independence from the Dutch in 1946. The Dutch constituted Bali as one of the 13 administrative districts of the newly proclaimed state of East Indonesia, a rival state to the Republic of Indonesia, which was proclaimed and headed by Sukarno and Hatta. Bali was included in the Republic of the United States of Indonesia when the Netherlands recognized Indonesian independence on 29 December 1949. Contemporary, the 1963 eruption of Mount Agung killed thousands, created economic havoc and forced many displaced Balinese to be transmigrated to other parts of Indonesia, mirroring the widening of social divisions across Indonesia in the 1950s and early 1960s. Bali saw conflict between supporters of the traditional caste system, and those rejecting this system. Politically, the opposition was represented by supporters of the Indonesian Communist Party and the Indonesian Nationalist Party, with tensions and ill-feeling further increased by the PKI's land reform programs. An attempted coup in Jakarta was put down by forces led by General Suharto. The army became the dominant power as it instigated a violent anti-communist purge, in which the army blamed the PKI for the coup. Most estimates suggest that at least 500,000 people were killed across Indonesia, with an estimated 80,000 killed in Bali, equivalent to 5% of the island's population. With no Islamic forces involved as in Java and Sumatra, upper caste PNI landlords led the extermination of PKI members. As a result of the 1965–66 upheavals, Suharto was able to maneuver Sukarno out of the presidency. His new order government re-established relations with Western countries. The pre-war Bali as paradise was revived in a modern form. The resulting large growth in tourism has led to a dramatic increase in Balinese standards of living and significant foreign exchange earned for the country. A bombing in 2002 by militant Islamists in the tourist area of Kuta killed 202 people, mostly foreigners. This attack, and another in 2005, severely reduced tourism, producing much economic hardship to the island. Geography. The island of Bali lies 3.2 kilometers east of Java, and is approximately 8 degrees south of the equator. Bali and Java are separated by the Bali Strait. East to west, the island is approximately 153 kilometers wide and spans approximately 112 kilometers north to south. Administratively, it covers 5,780 square kilometers, or 5,577 square kilometers without NUSAP Nadai district. Its population density is roughly 750 people per square kilometer. Bali's central mountains include several peaks over 3,000 meters in elevation. The highest is Mount Agung, known as the Mother Mountain, which is an active volcano rated as one of the world's most likely sites for a massive eruption within the next 100 years. Mountains range from center to the eastern side, with Mount Agung the easternmost peak. Bali's volcanic nature has contributed to its exceptional fertility, and its tall mountain ranges provide the high rainfall that supports the highly productive agriculture sector. South of the mountains is a broad, steadily descending area where most of Bali's large rice crop is grown. The northern side of the mountains slopes more steeply to the sea and is the main coffee-producing area of the island, along with rice, vegetables and cattle. The longest river, Ayung River, flows approximately 75 kilometers. The island is surrounded by coral reefs. Beaches in the south tend to have white sand, while those in the north and west have black sand. Bali has no major waterways, although the Ho River is navigable by small sampan boats. Black sand beaches between Pasut and Klating Duku are being developed for tourism, but apart from the seaside temple of Tanah Lot, they are not yet used for significant tourism. The largest city is the provincial capital, Denpasar, near the southern coast. Its population is around 491,500. Bali's second largest city is the old colonial capital, Singaraja, which is located on the north coast and is home to around 100,000 people. Other important cities include the beach resort, Kuta, which is practically part of Denpasar's urban area, and Ubud. Situated at the north of Denpasar, is the island's cultural center. 3 small islands lie to the immediate southeast and all are administratively part of the Kelungkung Regency of Bali. Nusa Penida, Nusa Lembongan and Nusa Senengan. These islands are separated from Bali by the Badung Strait. To the east, the Lombok Strait separates Bali from Lombok and marks the biogeographical division between the fauna of the Indomalayan ecozone and the distinctly different fauna of Australasia. The transition is known as the Wallace Line, named after Alfred Russel Wallace, who first proposed a transition zone between these two major biomes. When sea levels dropped during the Pleistocene Ice Age, Bali was connected to Java and Sumatra and to the mainland of Asia and shared the Asian fauna. But the deep water of the Lombok Strait continued to keep Lombok Island and the Lesser Sunda Archipelago isolated. Climate. Being just 8 degrees south of the equator, Bali has a fairly even climate year-round. Daytime temperatures at low elevations vary between 20 to 33 C, although it can be much cooler than that in the mountains. The west monsoon is in place from approximately October to April, and this can bring significant rain, particularly from December to March. Outside of the monsoon period, humidity is relatively low and any rain unlikely in lowland areas. Ecology. Bali lies just to the west of the Wallace Line, and thus has a fauna that is Asian in character, with very little Australasian influence, and has more in common with Java than with Lombok. An exception is the yellow-crested cockatoo, a member of a primarily Australasian family. There are around 280 species of birds, including the critically endangered Bali myna, which is endemic. Others include barn swallow, black-naped oriole, black racket-tailed trepia, crested serpent eagle, crested tree swift, dollarbird, Java sparrow, lesser adjutant, long-tailed shrike, milky stork, Pacific swallow, red-rumped swallow, sacred kingfisher, sea eagle, wood swallow, savannah nightjar, stork-billed kingfisher, yellow-vented bulbul and great egret. Until the early 20th century, Bali was home to several large mammals, the wild banteng, leopard and the endemic Bali tiger. The banteng still occurs in its domestic form, whereas leopards are found only in neighboring Java, and the Bali tiger is extinct. The last definite record of a tiger on Bali dates from 1937, when one was shot, though the subspecies may have survived until the 1940s or 1950s. The relatively small size of the island, conflict with humans, poaching and habitat reduction drove the Bali tiger to extinction. This was the smallest and rarest of all tiger subspecies and was never caught on film or displayed in zoos, whereas few skins or bones remain in museums around the world. Today, the largest mammals are the Javan rusa deer and the wild boar. A second, smaller species of deer, the Indian muntjac, also occurs. Saltwater crocodiles were once present on the island, but became locally extinct sometime during the last century. Squirrels are quite commonly encountered. Less often is the Asian palm civet, which is also kept in coffee farms to produce kopi luwak. Bats are well represented. Perhaps the most famous place to encounter them remaining the Goa Lawa, where they are worshipped by the locals and also constitute a tourist attraction. They also occur in other cave temples, for instance at Ganga Beach. Two species of monkey occur. The crab-eating macaque, known locally as kera, is quite common around human settlements and temples, where it becomes accustomed to being fed by humans, particularly in any of the three monkey forest temples, such as the popular one in the Ubud area. They are also quite often kept as pets by locals. The second monkey, endemic to Java and some surrounding islands such as Bali, is far rarer and more elusive, is the Javan langur, locally known as lutung. They occur in few places apart from the Bali Barat National Park. They are born an orange color, though by their first year they would have already changed to a more blackish coloration. In Java, however, there is more of a tendency for this species to retain its juvenile orange color into adulthood, and so you can see a mixture of black and orange monkeys together as a family. Other rarer mammals include the leopard cat, sunder pangolin and black giant squirrel. Snakes include the king cobra and reticulated python. The water monitor can grow to at least 1.5 meters in length and 50 kilograms and can move quickly. The rich coral reefs around the coast, particularly around popular diving spots such as Tulamben, Amid, Menjangan or neighboring Nusa Penida, host a wide range of marine life, for instance hawksbill turtle, giant sunfish, giant manta ray, giant moray eel, bumphead parrotfish, hammerhead shark, reef shark, barracuda, and sea snakes. Dolphins are commonly encountered on the north coast near Singaraja and Lovina. A team of scientists conducted a survey from the 29th of April 2011 to the 11th of May 2011 at 33 sea sites around Bali. They discovered 952 species of reef fish, of which 8 were new discoveries at Pemuterin, Gilimanuk, Nusa Dua, Tulamben and Candidasar, and 393 coral species, including 2 new ones at Padang Bay and between Padang Bay and Amid. The average coverage level of healthy coral was 36%, with the highest coverage found in Gili Selingan, Gili Mimpang and Candidasar, Karangasem Regency. Many plants have been introduced by humans within the last centuries, particularly since the 20th century, making it sometimes hard to distinguish what plants are really native. Among the larger trees, the most common are banyan trees, jackfruit, coconuts, bamboo species, acacia trees and also endless rows of coconuts and banana species. Numerous flowers can be seen: hibiscus, frangipani, bougainvillea, poinsettia, oleander, jasmine, water lily, lotus, roses, begonias, orchids and hydrangeas exist. On higher grounds that receive more moisture, for instance around Kintamani, certain species of fern trees, mushrooms and even pine trees thrive well. Rice comes in many varieties. Other plants with agricultural value include salic, mangosteen, corn, Kintamani orange coffee and water spinach.